Mr. Randy Duck, and welcome back for another video. Today I've got two replays to show you in the brand new tier 10 Chinese heavy premium tank, the Highlander 116-F3. I've got two replays. One of the replays is my own and the other replay was donated to me by my friend Wizzy, and I will show you both replays but also commentate over both of them, and I will explain my thoughts of this tank. Now, what I will do briefly before we get into replays, as it's a brand new tank, I'll just go over some of the statistics and what this tank is. So what is this tank? It's a Chinese tier 10 heavy tank which has a 3-shot autoloader with 530 alpha per shot, which is nice, but quite a long reload. You've got a 31-second reload combined with a 5-second interclip, which does make the reload in this tank feel quite long, to play basically. You've got 268 penetration on your standard AP rounds with 950 shell velocity, which is not great because the tank itself, the gun handling is not amazing, so it can feel a little bit awkward. It does, however, feel a lot better if you're firing the premium rounds, which has 325 penetration and then has 1,330 shell velocity. And that just makes the gun feel a lot better with that shell velocity. The tank does have some decent armour. It's got a decent turret, and if you are hold down, you can bounce quite a lot of shots. The whole armour is actually okay. You can ricochet shots off of it, but when you start fighting the tier 10 high premium rounds, then they can start to go through it. So the tank is pretty sluggish. You've got like a top speed, I think, of around about 35 kilometers an hour. The reverse speed's about 20 kilometers an hour. You do actually reverse back fairly quickly, which is nice, but overall it does feel a little bit sluggish. And my kind of overall opinion of playing this tank, to be honest with you, it hasn't really been that enjoyable. I haven't found it great tank, to be fair, just because it's the reload and on the interclip being a bit slow. It just feels a little bit sluggish and boring to play free, but that's obviously just my opinion. You can get it in the season pass for 6,000 gold, which ultimately only costs you 4,000 gold, because you get, if you manage to complete the season pass, 2,000 that gold back. So is it worth it? I mean, well, a tier 10 tank for 4,000 gold, yeah, it's probably worth it. Is it worth it if I was paying full price for this tank? No, I don't think so. It's not really. I wouldn't say it's a great tank. But that's just enough for me rambling on. Let's just get into the replays, and I can see what the tank can do through the course of the replays. Okay, so here we are for replay number 1 here on Ruinberg. Now, one thing actually I forgot to mention at the start of the video, one thing the tank is quite nice. It does have 8 degrees of gun depression, and for a Chinese heavy tank, that's pretty decent. Especially when you combine it with, it does actually have a decent turret. So yeah, that is one of the good features of the tank. It's not all bad. But what we're going to do here, we're initially on Bruenberg, we're just going to try and push in the middle and see if we can get into a brawl, see what gets spotted, and then we'll just react about what we're going to do to what happens. But straight away, this enemy heavy tank, he's kind of made a mistake, and we want to punish this tank early before it gets any support, because this tank was obviously quite, 260s pretty quick. I want to just try and get rid of this tank fast before I start getting shot in the side, which I am now happening. But with all our team moving in on this tank, it's not going to take long, and we get a nice early clip, which is always a good result. So we picked up just over 1,600 damage straight off the start of this game, and that was almost a gift to us, really. So we're on the reload now. Like I say, the reload does feel a bit sluggish, mainly because when you combine it with a 5-second interclip, the DPM on this tank isn't actually very good for a tier 10 heavy tank, and that's like I say, one of the reasons why I just don't really find this tank amazing. We've got a VZ here on the right, but there's just not enough room for me to side scrape here, and I've just seen him fire the shot. So at worst case, I think he's out, but worst case, I'm only going to eat 1 shell, and I want to just delete this VZ as quickly as I possibly can, in case I'm going to start getting shot from behind by tanks on the sort of the ridge on the left hand side, if you can see. So now I notice there are some tanks there. I'm pushing in to try and get in cover. I didn't really mean to ram my friendly teammate there. I was just trying to get out of the way to get shot, not get shot in the rear, and we dump our last shot into that heavy tank there, putting ourselves under 3,000 damage. We have kind of lost half our hit points, but which is never ideal, but at least we have got 3,000 damage, and we've taken 2 tanks out of the game for that, 2 dangerous tanks. So it's well worth trade in the end, just for mainly gaining the ground, gaining a little bit more of the map, and now we can try and push forward and try and get some damage. But I realise there's a stealthy Soviet tank destroyer in those ruins somewhere, and I don't want to get slapped by his 750 Alpha gun, so I'm going to try and pull back here because I realise he's looking for a shot. But I can't pull back too much because there is tanks behind us. This Mantis is not really aware of us. He's kind of in full flight survival mode right now. So we're going to try and pick up the kill and take care of that Mantis. But it gets taken out by a friendly Dragon. And we do at least get one shell into him. We're just seeing if we can get any shots into the left. I'll swap to the small mini-map here. That's because I want to know exactly what's happening around us at the moment. I kind of know what's happening in the bigger picture in the big map at the moment. I want to know what's happening, exactly where I am. So we get a nice shot there into that enemy tank destroyer, and then we ricochet the shell off of him. Like I say, you can bounce the shells on this tank. The problem is when you're side scraping this tank, the actual side of the turret can actually be penned. But we do ricochet the shell there off of an E4 on his snapshot, which is very, very helpful because otherwise we would have left on pretty much a one shot. We decided to dump the reload here in case that E4 comes around again. I want to be able to dump my clip and finish him off if I do have to eat a shell off of him, which I'd rather not avoid right now. But thankfully for me, the E4 gets taken out by our friendly Skoda who flanks around and does a good job at taking care of that tier 10 tank destroyer. Again, we're looking to see if we can get any shots into these tanks here. I just want to try and, it's all a fairly close game, but I want to try and take control of this area. These tanks in front of me are stopping me pushing around to get more damage right now, so I want to try and get rid of those, but I've got to be careful. Now, I've realised there's a tank on the left on the sort of, the flank, if you like, and I want to try and get some shots into this tank because he's in the open to me. I unfortunately missed my first shell. Maybe I could have aimed at a little bit better, but this time we are going to aim our shot and we get that one in, putting him onto a one shot to us. We may well be able to finish him off before he gets into cover, and we do, putting this onto 6,000 damage and 2 kills. We've still got 7 enemy tanks remaining. And I'm just waiting because I know there's about 3, maybe 4 tanks around this area where I am, and I want to try and get into reload, see if we can get another clip off if possible. There is that enemy object tank destroyer there, which is awkward for us, but he's getting shot by different angles now, and I'm hoping that my turning and maybe moving from that position, which might allow us to try and move in, and if he pokes we might be able to get a shot in to take him out, or I might be able to try and deal with this heavy tank instead. But it's not, none of that's really just happening for me right now. But that enemy TD, we managed to squeeze that shot in. That's the difference of having the premium rounds with that shell velocity there, because that 1350 shell velocity does make this tank feel a lot better. Enemy tier 8 tank destroyers coming round. We get a nice shot there through his cupola, penning him. Then we ricochet the shot ourselves, and we're going to start to pull back to get into cover. We got up to 6,000 damage now. We've gone on to a reload because I want to be able to actually finish this tank off. Because it's kind of only me in this medium tank really here right now. And I'm trying to pull back because I'm still on reload, and I'm getting pushed by 2 tanks now, which is not great. We do manage to ricochet one off of that enemy tank destroyer there, putting us onto about 3,000 blocks. But now I'm fighting 2 tanks. I do have help from the medium if he's alert enough to get shots into these tanks as they push around to me. I'm really hoping he is, because I kind of need his support right now to try and deal with these tanks. I'm only on 1,000 hit points and I'm fighting 2 tanks in front of us, which is not good. Trying to move forward to see if I can get a side scrape this sort of building. Unfortunately, we do eat a shot there, which is not good. We get a nice shot into that TD, manage to finish him off. Now I pulled out. I was hoping to go hold down onto this and side scrape off this building, off this wreck, but I ended up eating one anyway. And now I'm going to actually get taken out because that ST2's got fantastic DPM with that dual gun. And that is not ideal because I was having a really good game. We did manage to get 7,000 damage, but I could have got more out of that game. Maybe I could have got 8,000 damage. We do go on to win that game anyway. That was probably... I hadn't had much of a chance to play this tank, so I didn't have a lot of chance last night to get the videos in, and I wanted to get a video out for you today. But that was probably the best game I had. Like I say, the tank feels a little bit underwhelming to me anyway. But anyway, that's the end for the replay number 1. But we'll move on now to the final replay of the video, which was donated to us by a friend, Wizzy. Okay, so here's a video kindly donated to me by Wizzy here on Himmelsdorf. Now, one thing to mention before we get going is Wizzy at the time was kind of messing about with crew equipment, just trying different ones out. And at this moment in time, he's running powertrain, traction system and vertical stabilizer. So that's why he is moving a little bit quicker than what I was in my video. So here we go. So initially he moves up into this sort of position where he's able to get shots down the middle of the map where tanks like this E75 are not really in a great position, and he's able to actually take out a tank there and get a free kill. And now he's looking to try and get an extra shot here into this tank poking, and again has a really decent start to the game because he's got 3 shots, 3 pens and picked up a kill. So an ideal scenario here, and now he's obviously on this long reload. But it does look like in this particular setup our friendly team have started to push down the banana line, and in such a way that our other team on the left hand side, you see the light tank has gone all the way down the 1-2 line and kind of spotted that area, which has left the middle of the map open to basically come around and try and get flank shots. He gets a filthy shot on the move there for good measure as he advances. But now, obviously, what Wizzy's trying to do is collapse on these tanks in the middle by using the middle courtyard to try and get damage in. So he goes and gets one in the Tran. Thankfully, that Tran missed his shell. Otherwise, he would have lost half his hit points. But he manages to get a nice couple of shots into that Tran. The only problem with being here is the enemy if the enemy team have the hill, which for all accounts they probably will have the hill right now, they can shoot down onto him. But if he's able to use this building like he's doing this, it can keep him protected. And he's made a good decision going across the courtyard because he's able to really trap the enemy tanks down here with tanks going down the banana and sort of Wizzy in this location. They've got the tanks down the banana don't really have anywhere to go, and they're going to be fighting at multiple different angles. So he's going to try and get a shot into the Highlander. Unfortunately, there's sort of the derpy side of the tank where it misses its shell, but he's able to land a second shell and hoping to try and land the final shell of the clip to put this tank onto a potential one shot and picking up another clip of damage there. Well, he wants to try and get round out this position so he can't get shot down onto the hill, but there was this enemy Manticore, but he is going to move in now. The Manticore doesn't really have any DPM to really worry about, but while he's on reload he's just trying to wait for that reload to come round, and I think he's obviously planning on probably trying to maybe trap the Manticore or get around the back of that Avery while the Avery's not really paying attention, because obviously the Avery's a very, very dangerous tank in this game. And yeah, wants to try and focus that tank out, which I can't blame him. So he gets a nice shot into the Avery there, damaging his engine. Then there's this Manticore who's made his way onto the hill, and he gets a nice shot into that Manticore. He's got to be careful because he's now getting shot from behind him, from the tanks down there, and he's just going to pull back in, manages to kill the Avery, putting himself onto sort of 5,000 damage and 2 kills. Whilst he's now on reload, and at this point he's probably just scanning the tanks to see what hit points they have, so he can work out where he wants to go next and see where the most damage is probably going to be for him. And at this point it looks like the majority of the damage is actually on the hill. So rather than go up behind him on the hill, which is going to take quite a while to climb that hill, it looks like the enemy team are kind of moving off the hill now towards his base. So he's going to go back down the banana and try and catch those tanks out which are coming down the hill. And now here's the difference, with the powertrain and traction system, you do get the tank up to about 40 kilometers an hour on the flat ground, and it does feel a lot more mobile, I must admit, running that. So maybe that is an option I will try out, but for me I just found the gun. I always like to run optics really, just for the extra view range, and I kind of had the vents on there just because I wanted to boost that DPM as much as I possibly could. But as you can see, it does help out in this situation where he's able to get back to his destination quicker to try and pick up a bit more damage. You've got this enemy Highlander who's shot at least 1 shell there, and then you've got this enemy E100. Now this is why it's always good to count how many shells the enemy tanks have fired, because if his Highlander's out, then he can go straight in the E100. Now that Highlander's probably fired at least 2 shells, so he can no longer kill him in 1 shell. So he's going to ignore him, rightly so, and just dump his clip into this E100 to try and maximise the damage in that moment. And he does get his shots in, puts us under just shy of 7,000 damage and 3 kills, with only 2 enemy tanks remaining. And at this point, I guess the Manticore was last seen up the hill. The heavy tank is below this Highlander. He's going to go back to see if he can get any shots at this Highlander, but that Highlander gets evaporated very, very quickly. So it's only the enemy Manticore left. Manticore gets spotted. He's hoping going to try and get a squeeze in the shot here. He's still not quite reloaded, but maybe he'll just be able to get this in before it's taken by his friendly team, and he does squeeze that in, bringing an end to the replay and the video. So let's just see how Wizzy got on there. He managed to pick up just over 7,000 damage, 4 kills, a very, very similar game to myself, with 800 assistance and 1,600 blocked. So that is it for the video. So like I say, for me, this tank's a little bit meh, is the best way I can describe it. It's not completely terrible, and maybe it's your thing. Like I say, these are only my opinions, but yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, happy tanking.
Enemy in sight. Hadouken!